Hey, I'm Kylee Ludwig.
And I'm Jordan Ludwig.
And we co-wrote a book together.
This is what we've created.
I am undecided at Belmont. I'm a freshman, and we are both from Hillsborough, New Jersey.
And I'm also a freshman, and I'm an English major.
Growing up in like a match set, it was really hard to like differentiate yourself.
I was pink and Kylee was purple, so we would wear the same outfits, but it was just different.
Yeah, that's how people would tell us apart.
Yep.
Kylee was purple, Jordan was pink. Like originally we were like, we're not going anywhere together, we're not dorming together, we're not going to the same college. And then we're here. I like short stories or like little like contemporary things. I think they're fun, but any big project is always fantasy for me.
Yeah, when I'm not writing fantasy, it's almost always poetry or songwriting.
We're both really big Star Wars fans. We have been for years. Spider-Man is like probably both of us, like any of those movies, you name it, probably like in our top 10.
Yeah, when we were kids, us and our neighbors, we were like huge Star Wars fans. We'd run around the backyards with lightsabers. I guess we could say that kind of inspired us to be creative, right?
Yeah. We were always running around and like play acting and telling stories. And I think something clicked when we realized, hey, we can write these down and like remember them. At like early in school, once we started like doing like our like first actual writing assignments, we decided, why don't we take all of these things that we like to do at our house in our basement outside of school and like actually apply what we're learning to that, and then we can share these with people.
Yeah, so the book is called Rise of the Hunter. It came out July 21st and it's available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon, online only.
Or you can check us out on Goodreads.
Or Goodreads, yeah, that works too. I mean, the idea for our book, for Rise of the Hunter, was planted in our heads a long time ago.
Sixth grade.
Different forms, like it's evolved into a very coherent novel now, so I hope. But how the idea originated was when we were in 6th or 7th grade, and we just sat down and we're like, let's write a story, and it just kind of began as that, and ever since we wrote that very poor, never to be read,
will not see the light of day
story. Yeah, it kind of just never left our minds. We were like, well, what if we made it good?
Our book has 3 different points of view, but like the main idea is it centers around this princess who lives in a very traditional kingdom, and she's not really allowed to do anything that like the men in her kingdom can do. So she like takes up arms by herself and goes out at night as a vigilante in order to like help her people in the way that a princess never could. And this all goes south very quickly because she gets framed for murder. And her best friend who's like her childhood best friend, has had like a huge crush on her for like as long as he's known her. And as soon as he figures out like, oh, this vigilante's on the loose, he's like, oh, well, if I catch this person, then she will have to like me now because I'm gonna prove myself to her. And then the third point of view is from the other kingdom. So Tesselia is where Corellia the princess and Wesley, her friend, live. And he's being sent with some of his friends, his sister, and the friend is used very loosely for like this girl he used to know that they're like enemies, but we'll get into that. And he's going to find the hunter because who she was accused of murdering was an official from his kingdom. And he thinks that if he finds her and brings her to justice, he can stop the war.
So this is our copy of Rise of the Hunter. We wanted the cover to represent a lot of the main themes for the novel and for the future of the series. So each symbol representative on the cover means something larger in context of the book. So in our book, it's narrated by 3 different characters, and for each they have a specific header for their chapter. This is personally my favorite header for the prince of the enemy kingdom. He has an affinity for dark magic, so his chapter headers I just absolutely love, and it shows his ability to use magic. The world that we've created is very much a mirror of our own. Like, it's under this blanket of fantasy and hidden behind ball gowns and fancy titles, but it's more or less our own world because it's hugely rooted in prejudice, and people are born thinking a certain way, so therefore they have to think that way for the rest of their lives. And especially in chapters with Corellia, the princess, you could see that she begins to unwind the prejudice she was born into, the prejudice she didn't even know she carried, but as she goes through her life and the events of Rise of the Hunter, she starts to realize how corrupt the world that she lives in is and how she can maybe use her power to change that. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in fantasy or just interested in what that might be behind us, we have an Instagram and a TikTok page. It's Jordan and Kylee Books, just one word. for both Instagram and TikTok. Very creative.
The book is like a mosaic of like every piece of fiction that we've both absorbed like in our lifetime. As long as we can remember, we've been glued in front of a TV or with our heads in a book. And doing that for so long has like ingrained these into our memory and given us the crazy overactive imagination.
A lot of the story was born of the films and the books that we were reading and watching over the COVID period, because the idea to write this novel has always been with us and we've always thought about it but just never had the time to execute it. But when that quarantine period hit, there was nothing for us to do except think about this. So we would just sit on our couch, watch TV, read a book. It would kind of process and mix with that idea for the book that we had. And then eventually we would just spitball back and forth and be like, you know what? This is kind of a cool combination from this media and this. What if we just put them together and ran with it? And we did.
Like, we've always been Star Wars fans, but in the beginning of the pandemic, we were like, let's sit down and watch them again. And then the casual Star Wars fan in us was turned up to like 1,000. Eat, sleep, watch the Clone Wars, cry about the Clone Wars. And then we're like, what if like we took plot lines from this or like something from this that we didn't like, and we're like, let's change it and rewrite it so that we like the way that it ends this time. Character-wise, for the actual like writing part, we'd split the characters based on the ones that we felt we connected with more. Like Jordan wrote for Wesley and I wrote for Sarzan, which if you read the books, you might be concerned for me. And we both split Corellia. And I think for like the actual writing process, it was good to have someone else there, because if there was a day where like one of us was like sitting around doing nothing, the other one would be like, hey, come on, like we're doing this, like get up. Like I can sit and write for hours. I don't need food, I don't need water, I don't need to get up. Like once I'm in, I'm in.
In comparison to Kylee, lacked that attention span to zero in and write the entire day. But I always enjoyed the process of actually sitting down with like a piece of paper and just mapping out the plot. Because before we could even divide up chapters and who was writing what for this book, we had to establish a world and build it from nothing.
She's organized. This is her dorm, not mine. Like, I don't know why, we've always just had like a similar vision, even if it's things we haven't talked about aloud. Like, your ideas and my ideas kind of go together. But like, there's no like competition in writing a book together. Like, everything has to go together. Trying to like outdo one another gets you nowhere. It gets you backwards.
I think the biggest challenge was not even writing the book itself, which kind of sounds crazy, but what to do afterward. Because I felt that we finished the draft and then kind of sat on it for a couple weeks and thought about, well, we have this book now. What are we going to do with it? What am I supposed to do with it? So it turned into a lot of research, which I kind of had fun with, because that was like my role, like organization, like the manager, quote unquote. So I just dove into Google and was like waiting for someone to tell me the answer. And what we ultimately found was that we were better suited to self-publish the book than to publish it traditionally. I'm hoping that I can take my English major at Belmont and build upon what I think is on par writing and make it into something even better. But I'm hoping here at Belmont that I can just turn my writing into something that I can be proud of, and I already am, but maybe there's somewhere else that I can take it.
Well, I think every author's dream is to like see it like adapted on screen, which would be like insane. But honestly, I think like to start, all I really want is just people that love our characters as much as we do. As a writer, or we choose to write because conveying like our emotions and our like feelings through speech is a little more difficult for us. So whenever I write, I project like certain like insecurities and flaws I have about myself into these characters. And that's like my way of like coping with them. And when like people recognize this and they see this in your characters and they reach out to you anyway and say how much they love them, like knowing that they have these faults, that's a kind of fulfillment that like nothing really can own up to. Like everybody is always talking, oh, I have an idea, I can write a book. I have an idea, I want to write a book. But just that one first sentence, like the first thing you write down, that is all that's standing between a person with an idea and a person with a book. There's like a wall that like kind of stops us from starting. And this is the same for us when we started editing our second book, like sitting down is like the first line. It is like the most menacing thing you will ever write, and that's never gonna change no matter how many books you write. Once you get that down, and then you just gotta keep going and going, that's all that really matters. Like a bad first draft is all you need instead of like a perfect first sentence. I just hope that like what we do and what we've done can like inspire other people to like actually get their idea from their head to a paper, to a book. If I can do it, anybody can do it.